KTNA, experts in apprenticeships, traineeships and work-based training.
Hello and welcome to Chris & Co, the show looking at what affects business in Kent. With me, Chris Price. Joining me this week is Josh Wilson-Holliday, Head of Sales at housing developer Quinn Estates based in Canterbury. Later, we'll be asking whether it's realistic for companies to pay the real living wage after it increased by nearly 3% this week. First, it's a company behind many of the most significant housing and office developments in Kent. Quinn Estates is behind the transformation of the former Herne Bay Golf Club into nearly 600 homes. It's part of the Spirit of Sittingbourne partnership, building more than 200 apartments, a cinema and shops. It built the Connect 38 office block in Ashford's commercial quarter and has permission to build 750 homes in Thannington near Canterbury. Its latest proposals include Highland Court, a plan to turn 300 acres of protected countryside into 175 Cotswold-style holiday homes. Campaigners argue it will ruin an area of outstanding natural beauty, but Quinn Estates says it will bring £25 million a year to the local economy. Elsewhere, it's just submitted a planning application to build more than 1,700 houses, office space, a hotel, shopping centre and a school near Detling. The Binbury Park proposals also sit in an area of outstanding natural beauty, and the Campaign to Protect Rural England says it fails to take into account damage to the environment. Well, as I say, I'm delighted to be joined by Josh to talk about the firm's work. So Josh, first of all, these schemes, both of these particular schemes, Highland Court and Binbury, are put forward for areas of outstanding natural beauty. So why do the schemes need to be built in those areas?
Well, it all kind of depends on the site. So your national planning policy dictates that you can't build in an area of outstanding natural beauty unless you have a very special circumstance. Now, the two sites that you mentioned there, Binbury Park, we're creating exceptional highways betterment through the creation of a break grade separated junction off of the A249, which effectively mitigates the traffic problems that they currently have there. Over the last 5 years, there's been 188 crashes there. Even the other week, a motorcyclist unfortunately lost his life. So what we're doing there is creating road improvements that will prevent those accidents from happening in the future and paying for it through development. So that's what we believe is the reason for that development. And at Highland Court Farm, we're moving two of the most important sporting clubs, or one of the most important clubs in Canterbury, in the Canterbury Rugby Club and the Canterbury Football Club, because Canterbury City is one of the few cities, if the only city in the UK, to have a football team that doesn't actually play in Canterbury, and that is the reason why we believe it's appropriate to develop in the AONB.
Sure. So, but why does it have to be in an AONB? Why can't it? So often campaigners will say, well, why can't these schemes be put forward on brownfield land? Why is that? Is that not suitable in this case?
It all depends on the site. It's very difficult to find a site that's perfect for a sporting facility. It all depends on whether the landowner is willing for the land to be developed. Sometimes the land ownership is very complicated. A piece of land might be divided by 15 different ownerships. But in the cases of the sites that we've found at Binbury and Highland Court, they've been presented to us by single landowners that have a piece of land and say, look, can you do something with it?
Okay. So, how do you approach local opposition? I mean, inevitably with these, often with housing schemes, there is local opposition. Sometimes it's, NIMBY, not in my backyard types. Sometimes it's people with concerns about the environment. How do you approach that kind of local opposition?
Well, whenever we do an application, we do at least 2, maybe 3 public consultations. But public opposition is a very important thing for development, because the views of the people that live there, the people that are surrounded by the development, often input into the design of the development itself. And the best schemes are the ones that the locals design themselves. So very often we'll take a scheme to a public consultation and we'll end up changing it 2, 3, 4 times until most amount of people are happy with it.
Why do we want these kind of? I mean, we're talking about holiday homes in Kent. Why does Kent need holiday homes? Why is that? I mean, so much of the discussion is about the need for housing in general. Why has the company decided that that's the appropriate use for that land?
So the problem we've got at Canterbury at the moment is there isn't enough accommodation. So what's happening is people are coming down from London, they're coming for the day, they look at the cathedral, they do a bit of shopping, then they get on the train and they go back to London. Now what we wanted to do is create something that gives people a reason to stay in Canterbury, stay for a bit longer than they traditionally would normally stay. We've taken the model that you used at the U Lakes in the Cotswolds as a very strong example of this. We want people to come to Canterbury to stay over in these holiday homes and ultimately enjoy the area, enjoy the nature.
Sure. Okay. Joshua, thanks very much for your thoughts on that. Now, with news of a pub chain toasting £107 million to spend, one of Britain's healthiest high streets, and an opening date of a hotel expansion. Here's Joe Koshan with this week's Business Roundup.
Kent brewery giant Shepherd Neame is toasting two multi-million-pound finance deals to secure the future of the business. The Faversham-based brewer says the new financing deals will give them a whopping £107 million to spend on long-term plans to expand the business in the county. Britain's oldest brewer currently owns and operates 321 pubs in Kent and the South East. And the company have already agreed to build a new pub hotel in Castle Hill as part of the Ebbsfleet Garden City development. Elsewhere in the county, Canterbury's High Street has been ranked as the second healthiest in Britain. The city only fell short of Edinburgh in the rankings published by the Royal Society for Public Health. The league table rated 70 towns in terms of the impacts their high streets have had on their well-being. The RSPH regarded cafes and vape shops as positive influences on the high street, while off-licences, takeaways and empty outlets are believed to have a negative effect. And finally, the grand opening of a landmark hotel in Folkestone has been confirmed for spring of next year. The new look Premier Inn at Cherry Garden Lane is finally set to open its doors in February after a multi-million-pound expansion. The chain closed back in 2016 to allow for an extension to be built, which needed a Burger King drive-through to be demolished beforehand. The hotel is a common pit stop for motorists heading across the channel, and this extension will add almost 50 new rooms, bringing the total to 127 rooms in total.
Okay, so we saw there Shepherd Neame and its news of its huge expansion plans over the next 20 years or so, and the way it's gone about that is this restructuring of its finances, giving it access to £107 million. Quinn Estates is a company that's grown massively over the last decade or so. I mean, how does a company go about making sure it's expanding in the right way? How do you know that a way of getting access to money is the right way of going about getting access to money for that company?
Well, I think it all kind of depends on the company. I mean, firstly, we're very happy as a Kent company to see that Shepherd Neame are refinancing, and hopefully we'll spend a large amount of that money in Kent to create employment and create more of their product, which I love. But it all depends on the company. So with us, it took a while. If I'm being honest, we'd been trading for about 10 years. The number of schemes we had were 5 and 6, and then within a period of 2 or 3 years, we developed enough kind of staff to be able to start taking on 10 schemes, 20 schemes. Now we're at nearly 50. So it all depends on the company.
Yeah, it's not an easy question to answer, but
it's not.
so many different ways you could go about it. Thanks very much for that, Josh. Now, as part of KMTV's Made in Kent series, which looks at the county's tasty treats and delicious drinks, we're heading to a beer maker. Cameron Tucker's been to see how the appetising ales are produced at Musket Brewery in Maidstone.
In this week's edition of Made in Kent, we're at Maidstone's Musket Brewery, the family-run business with a whole armoury of beers. All the brews owe their names to the area's military past, and making them takes military precision. The malt is soaked to release sugars. Those sugars are then boiled with hops for seasoning. Now before they go into the copper, the hops need to be broken down from large chunks into smaller bits. And then it's putting in the hops to give that lovely bitter flavour. It's then on to fermentation, which can take days before going into the chiller and being carted off to thirsty drinkers. For the man behind the Linton Boozer, consistency is key.
We put the recipe together, it's thoroughly tested. We have a team of quality control people who want to come in. The queue goes right down the road, as you can imagine. But they come in, and once we get it right, we stick to that recipe. We don't change it at all. It's absolutely set in stone. People who like real ale want to know exactly what they're getting, and they know that having a musket beer, they know what's going to come. Probably one of the biggest compliments I ever had was from my Flintlock, my best bitter, when somebody emailed us and said, Flintlock, a traditional best bitter as it should be, reminds me of my first pint with my dad. I mean, that says it all.
Okay, so fantastic beer maker there. I mean, Quinn Estates has produced, has worked with beer, wine companies. I mean, what sort of sites are they looking for?
So within many of our developments, like Highland Court, for example, we create, we're proposing to create food and drink hubs. So this is space which is for like the beer maker you just saw there. Smaller kind of artisan food and drink companies can come together and sell their goods in the same kind of space. So you might have an alcohol.
Thanks for that, Joshua. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to Chris & Co, the show looking at what affects business in Kent, where I'm joined by Josh Wilson-Holliday from Quinn Estates. Many people in Kent enjoyed a pay rise this week after the real living wage was increased by 2.8% to £9 an hour. Not to be confused with the national living wage, which the government renamed the minimum wage in 2015. The real living wage is calculated independently based on the real cost of food, clothing and housing. Children's Salon, Cook and Holiday Extras are some of the companies from Kent which have signed up to the scheme, but is £9 per hour enough to get by on? We are shoppers in Chatham.
Not really, because when you look at the expense of things and just renting a place or living somewhere, and then the council tax, then you pay for the gas and electric, and if you look at it, most people are having to find at least £1,000 a month.
I would say £9 at the moment's good, but say in a couple of years' time, it won't be.
Certainly not this day and age. Certainly it should be a lot more than that. So many people are on the poverty line.
No, it's not enough. Anything can do more. At least a £10 will do, because everything nowadays have increased.
No.
No.
I mean, not that I work. I've retired, so it's not really a problem. But no, for a normal person that's working for a living, £9 an hour is not enough. No.
I think it's getting towards the right point, but probably not quite far enough. I think it needs to be slightly higher.
Realistically, to live, it's not really, unless you work a load of hours, then it's not enough to live off of at all. It kind of is okay to sort of struggle, but to be comfortable, it's not really.
Okay, so Josh, £9 an hour, is that enough to live on, do you think?
Well, coming from the construction industry, we pay well over that already. Now I can't speak obviously on behalf of other industries, but the key thing for us is one thing that we value most in our employees is kind of loyalty. So if we need to, if they're struggling to make ends meet on the minimum wage, then that's completely fine with us.
Sure. I mean, there are many industries where perhaps it's quite difficult to pay £9 an hour. I mean, is it realistic for a business in, say, tourism and hospitality, or a business, a pub business, something like that, to be paying staff £9 an hour when margins are quite tight for a lot of them?
I mean, I think it is. If wages go up to, if this is taken on at £9 an hour, I think people will have more money, prices could increase, and potentially the companies could still have their margin that way. I think if some of the population were paid £9 an hour and the rest will stayed on the living wage, I think that will create more of a disparity, which I think would be problematic.
Sure. Okay. Why is it difficult for some companies to pay that amount of money? I mean, what are there any particular barriers for firms to be able to achieve that? Is there anything that firms could maybe do to make it a bit more realistic for them to pay workers the real living wage as opposed to the national living wage? Absolutely.
Well, I think it can actually happen from a government level. So local authorities with smaller companies in the area could potentially look at giving business rate relief, or could help them out with subsidies in some kind of way, which means that the companies are still making the amount of money that they want to make, or their margin, and they can still pay the minimum wage. I think there needs to be some kind of government intervention to make that happen.
Brilliant. Josh, thanks for that. Now, the 50 fastest growing businesses across Kent have been recognised in the annual Mega Growth 50 Awards. Held in Maidstone, they're now in their 17th year this time. Businesses have been dealing with the looming prospect of Brexit. Poppy Jeffrey has been to meet the winners.
Businesses from across the county attended the prestigious Mega Growth 50 Awards in Maidstone.
We're here today to celebrate the growth of businesses in the local area. I think what's been phenomenal just across Kent is some of the growth rates that we're seeing from companies throughout, and it's a great celebration of that.
It's really diverse, and I think that reflects the business economy of Kent, and they range from service industries through to tech businesses, through to those that are concentrating on exports, possibly because of our location, but a real variety.
So basically we look at accounts of the father company's house to see the actual sort of turnover growth, and we track those. and review them each year to see how people are doing. It's not just 1 year on its own, it's a combination of years.
The winner of the export category was G-Forces, which recorded growth of 949% in 2016.
So G-Forces is a software provider to the automotive industry, live in over 60 countries now, providing bespoke solutions to our customers and helping them really sell cars. We have worked incredibly hard to grow our product portfolio in the Middle East predominantly, Australia, South Africa as well. So yeah, really thrilled to win this award.
And topping the Mega Growth 50 list this year was the Specialist Works, an independent media agency.
We're a media agency, global. We have offices in London, Kent, Hong Kong, America, all over the world, and we do advertising and media for some big names. We're just an awesome company.
We're amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's all paying off. Everyone's hard work is all paying off.
The Mega Growth 50 celebrates the 50 fastest growing businesses across the county. But with Brexit happening next March, this has given them an additional challenge to contend with.
The B word is very prevalent at the moment. How do people get around the Brexit challenges? And the great things that I found, the common thing that I found with SMEs is that they work within the circles of influence, things that they can actually do, so they ignore all the peripheral stuff that they can't influence and just get on with being a good SME. So looking after their suppliers, building strong relationships with their customers, and working on their staff, retaining them and involving them.
With less than 6 months left until we leave the European Union, the results of the next Mega Growth 50 event could be very different, as each company has to adapt to new challenges, and it'll be very interesting to see who the next group of winners are. This is Poppy Jeffrey for KMTV in Maidstone.
Okay, so it's fantastic to see there, Josh, some of these fast-growing businesses. I mean, what's the key to getting a business to really expand quickly but also sustainably?
I mean, it's kind of two things for us. It's the market at the time. Now, fortunately, construction at the moment, we're at a good time. There's land, there's sites that are coming forward. Everyone needs a house. There's a housing shortage nationally, and for house builders, obviously, that's a very good thing. But it also depends on your marketing. We invest heavily on marketing across Kent, so getting our name out there. But those for us are the two main things.
One of the things that many of the businesses mentioned has been Brexit. Dare we say the B word? It comes up in every show. How are businesses able to sort of overcome the challenges that the uncertainty that is put forward by Brexit? What kind of things should businesses be doing to make sure that they're able to grow, despite the uncertainty out there?
I mean, it's a difficult question to ask at the moment. I mean, fortunately, we haven't got long until we have some kind of indication from the government when they're planning on what the scoop is with Brexit. So I think for the time being, businesses should maybe not be too cautious, but maybe hold fire. But when we have a bit more information, we'll know what's going to happen with the market.
So we could see a complete change in these fast-growing businesses once there is this certainty.
Absolutely, yeah.
Around Brexit. Potentially there could be a boom from other types of industry.
I mean, that's what we think. Yeah. As long as the problem with the market at the moment is there isn't enough certainty. So once we know what's going to happen with Brexit, businesses will start making decisions and move forward.
One of the companies that did really, really well in Mega Growth was a construction firm. Chartway came second. Construction is it's a good time for you guys at the moment.
It's a really good time. Yeah, Chartway we know very well. They do a lot of work with housing associations, and they have been contributing heavily to the supply of housing in Kent. But as I say, it's a good time.
One thing I very, very want to quickly ask you about on the construction front, your boss, Mark Quinn, the owner of Quinn Estates, now he has donated to political parties in Kent, so Labour and Conservatives, admittedly. Your company looks for planning permissions to be approved by political parties, of both sides in Kent. I mean, do you think that that's wise, given that that how people will look at that from the outside? Do you think people may look at that sceptically from the outside? Do you think it's wise to make political party donations, given that many people look at a company like Quinn and know that part of the work of the company is to try and get schemes approved?
Well, I think what people need to remember is that we don't generally donate locally. We always do the national parties. Now, obviously, as people know, when you go for planning permission, it's chosen by your local councillors. It's not chosen by the national governing bodies. But we're open about it. We support the pro-business policies of the Conservative Party. But at the same time, the reason why we have donated to the Labour Party is that, well, particularly in the case of Canterbury, we do support some of the policies that Rosie Duffield stands for.
Sure. Joshua, thanks very much for that. Now, before we go, we just have time to reveal our number of the week. And this week's number is 8,240. That's how many jobs will be created by Lloyds as part of a corporate overhaul to focus the banking group more on digital services. But the restructure will also lead to 6,240 job losses and the closure of its site in Gillingham if it goes ahead, leaving hundreds of Kent staff out of work. I mean, this must be very, very worrying for people in the area. What do you think that, the key thing that we'd be looking for from Lloyds on this, to keep some of the jobs in Kent and in the UK that they'll be creating?
Yes, I think what's really important there is where are they putting the extra jobs? Okay, to digitise something, I'm not entirely sure what that means, but we've personally moved digital companies, tech companies into buildings we've built in Ashford. So there's no reason why the jobs shouldn't be created in Kent. So I think once we have more certainty on that, then I think it's probably the government's job to make sure something's done.
OK, Joshua, it's been wonderful having you on the show. Thanks very much for coming in. That's it for the latest edition of Chris & Co, our show looking at the issues affecting business in Kent. You can keep up to date with all the county's latest business news at kentbusiness.co.uk. Follow us on Twitter at KentBusiness. But for now, thanks very much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
KTNA, experts in apprenticeships, traineeships and work-based training.